Lindy. External Mr. Barrera.
The trajectory of the story and the tone was a little bit different to what this feature has become. And so I was very interested in that journey of not only thinking about how you could broaden the narrative into a feature, but also thinking about the different tones that you wanted to hit with this.
I mean, you can't really accomplish as much as you would hope to accomplish in a short film because you just don't have enough time. So I had all these dreams about what this project could be, but you know, I couldn't get it done in 15 minutes. So, but I always, you know, I talk about this is based on an experience that happened to me, and I was broken up with, I was diagnosed with cancer, and that
murdered her ex.
I murdered him in jail, and I wrote it in jail.
Dylan is fresh out of jail, so let's congratulate
But that experience didn't feel like a one genre experience, so then the movie couldn't be one genre. And so I knew I wanted to experiment with this film and make it wild and wacky and flip the rom-com genre on its head. And I just needed to convince a couple of people to do it with me. And yeah, and so I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to turn this into a bigger, longer product.
And Melissa, I mean, you do so much with your performance in this because it's a literal and a metaphorical finding of her voice and kind of learning to harness anger and use it to figure out what's not working in her life and how to fix it. And I was curious, once you met Caroline's script, how did you really map out what you felt like that arc was going to be? Because once you were shooting, you obviously didn't have very much time to kind of go through things. You really just had to jump in.
I think I just read the script a bunch of times and I was so in love with it and I was so in love with Laura that it just kind of felt natural. I didn't really have to plan anything, and I think the first 2 weeks, because we shot this in 20 days, and the first 2 weeks we shot everything in the house. So it was mostly just Tommy and me for the first 2 weeks. And we didn't shoot in sequential order precisely, but kind of. So we started with like where I realized that Monster is real and he's there and he made me a tea. And I think it just kind of felt, once we'd done those 2 weeks that were kind of like a progression, everything else just kind of fell into place. I didn't really feel like I had to do a lot of like mapping out. It just kind of naturally was there on the page, and that brilliantly, you know, Caroline wrote this amazing character.
Yeah, that's amazing. And Tommy, for you, I mean, you were in the short film as well. And in working with like Dave Anderson, who was creating the prosthetics and the look for Monster, I was curious about how getting to go to the studio and see the different iterations really helped you to start figuring out how you were going to play this character, and also just the challenges of playing the character through prosthetics in a way that still really connects the audience and emotes through your performance.
Yeah, well, I mean, Dave's a real genius in terms of the monster of it. I mean, I think, you know, the real trick of it was like, that does all the work, and then I can just engage with Melissa and play this entity that cares about her and goads her and, you know, charms her and pranks her and all this stuff that he does. So it was like, I didn't want to put a hat on a hat, right? I didn't want to play Monster. So that after that work with Dave, it was so great. I felt like we had the monster piece taken care of. Now it's just time to kind of roll up our sleeves and do the acting. The great thing about that prosthetic, a couple interesting things. That 4.5 hours every morning, Dave's a super zen, like, she's sort of a philosopher. Like, spending 4 hours with him, I would recommend to everyone. It's really great. He lives with me now. But that prosthetic, and it dies every night. So we do a brand new mask every day, and all that hair is hand laid. And it is so mapped to my face that every crow's foot, singular. Every wrinkle, like any movement I make works. And I guess we were maybe a little, because we used a very cheap prosthetic for the short, which
It
was,
was like $150.
I think it was called like goat face or something. But the one we used for the feature, the great thing we learned early on is that I could play small and it would show up on the camera. But Dave warned me about, this is the longest answer, everyone, I'm so sorry. He was like, at the end of the week, you're gonna feel like you've been like lifting weights with your face. And sure enough, like, you kind of stay in the pocket all week long, and then come Friday, my face is tired. Anyway, that's the 10-minute answer to your question.
Kayla, I want to talk about your work as a producer on the film and working alongside Caroline, because it sounds like you were kind of both a boots on the ground producer, but also a very creative producer in this partnership. And we're there kind of going over script pages for weeks leading up to, probably months as well, leading up to production, all the way through the edit. And I was just curious about some of the conversations that the two of you had to really figure out and finesse and maintain the tone of this, because it's such an amalgamation of tones that works in a really beautiful way.
Yeah, I mean, working with Caroline on this, I was so excited for the challenge of figuring out how to mash these genres up, because my favorite thing about Caroline as a filmmaker, and I think new filmmakers, what they can really learn from her, I think, is that you're allowed to experiment on something, even if it's your first thing, and even if it's the only thing people are gonna see, that's really what filmmaking is about, is taking risks and taking a big swing. And you know, as like two young women making a film, we felt like we had to take a big swing so that people would pay attention. The conversation that we always came up with us was, there are all the tones, but what is the through line of this story? The through line is truth. The through line is Laura's arc. The through line is Laura's feelings, and the tones kind of coming in and supporting that. And another line Caroline says that I love is that her experience wasn't a one genre experience, and which is very true. So, you know, in terms of negotiating your relationship with your rage, it's like, okay, well, you shut it out as a kid because you're kind of told a certain way to behave, and then you go through something awful and you meet it again and you're kind of freaked out by the way that your stomach is feeling, and then you have some Chinese food with it and watch a cute movie and you think like, maybe this feels okay and maybe I feel a little bit empowered, and then you stumble and maybe you get too angry and you fight with it and feel like this part of me is ugly, and that's all very true. And it was like, how can we use different tones and different genres to support that truth?
I love that answer. And Edmund, I mean, this story is very much about Laura's journey with her rage, but Jacob also has his own relationship with rage in it, and it comes out in a very different, expressive way to that. And it feels like a lot of it is to do with the opinion that he has of himself and holding himself in like very high regard as, you know, I'm the sole creator of all of this. And so how did you set about exploring his relationship with his rage and anger?
Yeah, that's a good question. He certainly does that. I think that the way that I understand this guy is that he's just not as selfless, or not as empathetic or as selfless as Laura Franco's character. You know, and he's doesn't have all of those, you know, caring aspects that she does. He's really kind of like a one-track minded guy. He has this musical that he's written and he's directing, and that's kind of the only thing that he cares about. And so, you know, you've all seen the movie now. By the time he gets to that place where his rage really comes out, it's an expression of him feeling like this thing, like everything in his life, the only thing that matters to him, everything he's done, like the pinnacle of his life is being taken away from him, you know. And of course that's ridiculous to all of us, because we've now, as the observers, because we've watched what he's done to other people and all the ways that he's been insensitive and stuff. But to him, it's like, you're ruining my life, you know. Like, she's his monster. Excuse me, yeah. Or like she's like, you know, yeah, ruining his life. So, but it's very fun. It was very fun to do that scene. There was a lot of like, Melissa got to yell at me. I got to yell at Melissa all on stage. Yeah.
One of the scenes that I wanted to ask the three of you about for Caroline, Melissa, and Tommy is the scene where we go into Monster's secret concave in the closet, and we see all of the items that he's been collecting throughout her entire lifetime. and then they have this explosive, heated, emotional argument about socks, and yet really it's about their feelings and all the things that they don't know how to express to each other. Because I think it's a really beautiful scene, and I know, Melissa, you talked about how for you and Tommy, you kind of struggled a little bit at first trying to figure out the tone, but then when you edited it, it kind of came together really naturally. So I was just curious about the journey of really finding a moment like that in the film.
When we were filming that scene, we were really exhausted. It was later on in the shoot. We had all started to kind of lose our minds, and it was late. It was late. It was the middle of the night, and it was this very emotional scene. And they had to have a lot of energy. I had to have a lot of energy, and we kind of started to do it. And we three of us looked at each other and were like, "Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're doing?" And all, we
Literally, we were like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
So we started freaking
Panic attack.
Yeah, all of us are having like private panic attacks, and I don't know. I think we went off into a room and started rehearsing it, and I said, "Just let's do it again and again and again." And eventually, they kind of found a rhythm. I was like, I can't really see right now, but I think whatever it is that you guys are doing is right.
I think the key to it is we kind of blew a fuse.
Yeah.
Really hot, pitched really hot. We were very yelling, and there's still some yelling in there, but it's like, it's also really heartbreaking. They at some point, just via exhaustion, like the scene cooled off a little bit, and all that other stuff was able to play. The heartbreak out. We kind of know this is the beginning of the end for these two, and they're kind of they're yelling, but they're also crushed by it, and it took on a more varied, quality. If I remember correctly, we just went in really hot, and
It was so traumatic for me. I literally blocked it out. I was like, because I was like, I suck. This scene is going to suck. I don't know what I'm doing. And I think we were all so tired that we all felt that way. And there was a moment, I think, where I felt like, well, I guess this could ruin the whole movie. Like, that's how I felt. And I think that's why it ended up being so emotional like that, because I was feeling like I am ruining this movie in this moment.
Usually when Melissa thinks she's ruining the movie, it's the best part of the movie. Because she's at her most vulnerable. And we would have a thing where she'd be like, I don't know what you want me to do. And then I'd be like, you're doing it. And then she would start to do it. And I'd be like, okay, great. Like, you want me to be in there with you? She's like, leave. I've got it. So at our most vulnerable, that's when she really shines.
one day Caroline played a scene for us. She was like, maybe this scene, well, I don't even remember what it was. And I think Melissa said, Caroline, that isn't helping. But that is just a tee up. I want to brag on Caroline for a second, because that socks line captures the sort of magic of her writing and her mastery of fused tones and everything. That is a hot scene, it's a sad scene, it is the crescendo of the relationship between Monster and Laura, and there is the best joke in the movie in the middle of that scene, which is a really dangerous thing to do, but it is just the perfect sort of pressure release in the middle of that scene. It gets a huge, hopefully you get a laugh tonight, I don't know we weren't here, but, and it sort of keeps you on course tonally. I think a lesser writer would say, well, we can't have that kind of line in this scene, but it perfectly kind of linchpins that scene.
Yeah, we have just a couple minutes left, so I'd love to open up to questions if any of you guys have any. Yes, right over here.
Hi, this question is for Melissa. After this movie, are you ready for Broadway?
It's literally my dream. And yeah, I would love to if they will cast me. Maybe we'll make a musical out of this movie.
I know we will hear more monsters singing.
Powder song.
Yeah.
And yes, right over here.
Follow up to what he is going to your top 3 musicals.
Top 3, in life, or that are currently on Broadway?
In life.
In life? Oof. Okay, my top 3 would probably be Rent, Spring Awakening, and Wicked. I'm too old for Spring Awakening now. Maybe when I'm older, I can play the mom. I can play like all the different characters. But yeah, those are my favorites that I would listen to on repeat that I know every single word to.
We've got a few minutes.
December 24th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That's right. That's what I want to hear.
Anybody else got any questions? Yeah, right over here. Yeah.
For Tommy, we just recently saw you on Saturday night, which were really great.
Oh, thanks.
And with this also being fantastic, what are you looking forward to doing next, or what can we look forward to seeing you in?
Just more beards. It's all beards for me. It's different shapes and sizes. I'm working on a bunch of stuff. I don't really know what's next. I've been sort of busy trotting those two out, which it's been really interesting promoting those movies at the same time. One's that big ensemble pieces, as you know, and this was so near and dear to me. I was in the short. I was on the producing team, not in the way that Kayla was, but I was really, really in on this one. And this was one of those, like she said, 20 days, kind of roll up your sleeves and you know, see if you can make magic. My heart and soul wants to make more things like this, you know. I mean, this is what you do it for. But you gotta pay the bills too.
What do you mean? I didn't pay your bill.
Yeah, right here.
My question's for Tommy. I was wondering, how long did the prosthetics take?
Yeah, it's about 4.5 hours every morning. But Dave is such a perfectionist that if you gave him time, he'd keep tinkering. He'd be like, the bowl doesn't look quite right. Let's wipe it off and do it again. The process is they lay on the mask, they paint it fresh every day. So it's a fresh coat of paint every day, and then he does the whole detail work. And then this brilliant guy Johan comes in and does all the hair stuff. Yeah, like I said, I thought I would sweat it more than I did. What'd you say?
Strand by strand.
Yeah, and by the end of every day, the hair ends up all over Melissa.
Yeah, I would, after we made out, I would have the beard on me.
Oh,
He also had acrylics, which
Wow.
was the best. Tommy offset with
The most
acrylics.
disgusting nails you've ever seen in your life.
Like brown.
Listen, they were so cool. At first, they're like, grow out your nails for a couple months. And I was like, yeah, cool, I'll do that. I had a 1-year-old at the time, so I'm changing diapers in these, like, I don't know, Freddy Krueger nails. And then I get to 7, like, those nails are pathetic. So then they sent me somewhere to get the acrylic things. But I forgot about them, and one day, and they got dirty, that you couldn't get the dirt off it. I mean, it was fake dirt, but it looked gnarly. And there was this coffee shop I walked to set every morning, and I would go to this coffee shop. And one day, I caught the guy just looking with disdain at my hands as he handed me my latte. Like, would you wash your hands, dude? Like, just going to this coffee shop. And I thought, oh, these aren't, I didn't do that. I mean, this is for a show. I never went back. I switched coffee shops.
Well, it's such a fantastic film, and thank you so much for sharing with all of us. Thank you for coming out to tonight's screening.
Thank you.
For 1 second, they've got to raise across town to another Q&A. Thank you so much.
Melissa, I love